Speed feels great, both in real life and in video games. Oh, it feels incredible in video games. That is one of my favorite things in video games. Incredible speed. It's why I want to get more into speed running, because it feels good to beat these games that used to take ages for me to beat just to blaze through them during speedruns. Speedy movement can make games feel good to play, especially if they have good feeling controls. So speed with good movement is incredible on its own, but if you add the element of difficulty to it, then that is going to make a game shine in my eyes. Hard yet rewarding games are incredible. Some of my favorite games of all time are games that are both very difficult and really fast and fun controlling games. It also adds to the hatred of games that are bad controlling and difficult with no reward. Such as a certain game that I cannot get over. But difficult games that have great controls are amazing. It makes it feel like any mistake I make actually feels like a mistake I made. Then on top of all of these already stated ideas, imagine adding my third favorite thing in video games. It's really just one of my favorite genres of games, the first-person shooter. Growing up, I'd be playing the Half-Life games, Gmod, Doom, among other mainly Valve games. As I grew older, I also realized just how good indie first-person shooters are. I love indie FPS games to death. Dusk, Post Void, Ultra Kill, and the topic of today's video, Cyberhook. Cyberhook takes all of the elements that I was just talking about and mixes it all together in an incredible potion of a game. Still with plenty of flaws, but it is one of the best examples of all of these things mixed together into one perfectly tight game. I'd first learned about this game when I was watching YouTube videos. I was watching a good few of them, and I kept seeing this one game being played in the background as the person was talking. I wondered, what is this game? It looks really fun and challenging. I think I looked in the description, and I'm pretty sure that's where I had seen the game. The creator had stated that the game in the background was a game called Cyberhook. I looked the game up on Steam, and lo and behold, it was there. And it was pretty cheap too, only $15. Definitely not the cheapest I've seen, but definitely not the most expensive. So I bought it and decided to try it out. I had then unlocked one of my favorite on and off games I've ever played. Cyberhook is a game that has you using a hook to grapple through levels in the sky. I presume, at least. So this game takes place in a cyber world, basically. Cyber robot, cyber enemies, cyber world. That's basically the entire story, you know. Okay, there might be a little bit more. Basically, you're stuck in a cyber world and have to try and make your way out. Also, there's this robot person that's trying to help you get out throughout the game. Also, there are evil eye hacker dudes who are trying to kill you. And you have to get rid of their leader to fix the whole thing. This dude is part of them. He just kind of shows up once you beat the main game, though. Nothing else really happens with him. He's just there. Now that's all the story. There really isn't that much. This game would rather immediately throw you into the action instead of giving you a deep, emotional story about being stuck in a cyber world. That's a very good thing, mind you. A game like this really doesn't need a crazy story. The reason you buy the game more than likely is because the grappling mechanics look fun and it was pretty cheap, or on sale. Story's not a main selling point, basically. I would get more into it, but I pretty much forgot all of it, so no. The main focus of Cyberhook's gameplay is the game's hooking and swinging around. Who woulda thunk? You're going to be swinging around most of the time in this game. It's what it's named after. It makes sense. You even have this pretty cool starting hub that basically acts as a sort of playground that you can run around. Honestly, I like this area a lot. It lets you mess with the controls and helps you get used to the feel of them. It's also just really fun to swing around this area. I wish they made a game where there's this kind of hub, but they have collectibles and stuff to find, and cool extra areas to find. Like an open world Cyberhook game. That'd be sick.
But I also wish that they used the hub for more than just a starting round, because once you start playing the game, you aren't going to see this hub again. Instead, you're just going to go straight into the menu for the levels.
Kinda defeats the point of the hub existing, doesn't it?
The hook does have a few mechanics of its own, such as holding the mouse button to fling yourself forward. There's also the slow motion move you can do, basically slowing everything around you down so that you don't fall to your doom and so that you can get back up from any mistakes. The timer doesn't slow down when you do this though.
That's important later.
Then there is the wall slide that you can do. This move is kinda weird feeling. For one, when you do it, you go upward. It's not like most wall slides that take you off to the side. No, this one just goes up. I could never really get used to the wall slide. I don't use this move very much compared to the other parts of the moveset. I don't know why, it just always felt weird to me.
For the final move in your arsenal, you get to shoot a gun from your finger. I meant you get to shoot from your fingers. There is no gun in this game.
It's a basic weapon with pretty much nothing else to add. It's pretty cool. I feel like we should definitely talk about the obstacles, or at least most of them, next, since I feel like it, I guess.
So in the game, there are multiple sets of blocks that you can see as you fly about. Many of them are color-coded so that you can see them from afar and plan your route out accordingly.
These blocks consist of blue, purple, red, yellow, and green. The blue blocks are the ones that you can swing on and hop on and all that. The red ones are deadly and kill you if you touch them. Yellow basically does nothing. You can't swing from these, but you can still touch them and walk on them. Purple ones let you swing from them, but don't get too close because they can kill you.
Trust me, it hurts getting killed by these.
Then finally there are the green ones.
These ones block your way unless you shoot them with your finger guns. I like the green blocks a lot.
I just feel like they aren't used as much as they should have been. And when they are used, it's not very clever or crazy interesting, but when they are used well, they're fun to deal with. And that's pretty much all of the objects in the game. They're pretty fun and make for very good obstacles at a lot of points. There's only really one more obstacle trying to stop you from progressing, and those are the green hackermen chasing after you. I mentioned them briefly earlier, but these dudes will basically shoot at you from their eyes, and they're precise too. You have to be quick on the draw with them, or they will just snipe you. I really like them though. Their design and fast-paced attacks fit very well with how quick and fast-paced the game is in general. They are very nice inclusions. I, again, just wish they were used more than they were in the end, much like the green blocks. Let's get into the mechanics of the game now. There are only really a few of them in this game. The first mechanic is these pass-through blocks that you can go through. You can't shoot past them, but you can go through them. Then there are these green switch things. I don't really know what to call them, but basically you shoot them with your finger guns and they either activate things or get rid of blocks blocking your way. They, much like a lot of the other mechanics, aren't used very much, and I feel like they're such cool ideas, but they never get to fully expand. When they do get used though, they are very fun. The level Hover is a very good example of this. Basically, the door to beat the level is blocked by this block, and you have to make your way through this hallway of death and sadness to shoot the switch and make it back in time to get through the door. This level is a great use of these switches. It's one of the most difficult in the game, and yet it's still fun. These are the ways I want them to get used, but just more. Since they aren't used very much, we don't get very many levels that have these cool, interesting concepts with these mechanics. The levels themselves do have very good concepts, it's just that most of the time, these concepts don't incorporate the other mechanics very well.
Anyway, while we're on the concept of levels in this game, let's talk about the level designs in the game. Oh my god, they are really, really good!
The earlier levels are just kind of fun to play through, like turn off your brain kind of fun. Since they aren't very difficult at all, no, they're just fun to twiddle your fingers away at. Now getting to the later levels is where you get the variety and fun, interesting, and difficult levels. I already pointed out Hover, but then there are levels like Purple Veins, where you can swing from the purple blocks really high up. It mixes the difficulty of trying not to touch the blocks and trying to fly higher up. It's the really fun kind of difficult. The difficulty where you actually learn each time you die and get better from each mistake. This game does really well here, both teaching you how to use the forward momentum from your swing to go fast, and to do this whilst not touching the blocks. Then there are even later levels like Master Airbender. This level is really hard and really long, and by this point the game isn't trying to help you out as much. It's not teaching you anything new. The later levels are just difficult because at this point it's up to you to figure out the best strategy to finish the level. That sort of progression is great in a game like this. The levels get more and more challenging, and yet the game's still fun, because I'm strategizing how I can beat this level. It's no longer the game trying to teach me anything, it's more so me trying to figure out the level. Then there's Myst.
This level will test you and your will.
This one is a very difficult level. It frustrates me so much. I still can't fault it though, since it has all the right things to being a good level, and it is very rewarding once you get past it. But the level is probably one of the most difficult in the game, and it is still very fun.
Going for the crystals is a bit of a pain though. Yeah, crystals. I don't really know what they are, what they do, but they're fun to get.
The crystals are basically a collectible sort of thing. You get them from beating the levels quickly, kind of like the relics in Crash Bandicoot games. They're the most replayable part of this game. It is so fun to go back into this game every now and then, grind a few crystals, and then just leave. That's why I refer to this game as an on and off game, because I hop on and off on the regular. At least that's when I was still getting the crystals. After I got all of them, I kind of just stopped playing the game, which sucks. This game is incredibly fun. It just doesn't have much replay value after you get the crystals. But they do give at least some replay value, which is great. Also reminds me about how fast you can go in this game.
For some levels, you can just go blazing through like a damn speedy fella.
It makes this game insanely fun to go through in like an hour, greatly helped by the fact that they have an in-game marathon that you can do, going through all of the levels in one go. Not in one life, mind you, just one go through, no stopping. They even have these monthly marathons that you can do. They're really fun and actually can bring you back to the game every once in a while. But while we're on the concept of the crystals, I want to talk very briefly about these green orb things. I don't know what they do or what they're doing here. I haven't seen any videos on what they are or what happens when you collect them all. I just sort of started collecting them without any rhyme or reason.
I need to know what happens if you get all of them. I need to know. I don't know what's gonna happen. Who knows what's gonna happen? How is it gonna happen? What's going on? How do I help? Anyway, I've been gawking about this game for far too long. How about we discuss something that is done rather poorly? Even if it's not that big of a deal, it's the last thing I want to mention before heading to the DLC.
The overall look of the game is pretty nice. I really like the way it looks in general. It is a cyber world, and the aesthetic fits that very well. What I don't like, however, is that it never changes. We never get a change of scenery. It's always this, and while I love this, when the game is split up into segments, I kind of want to differentiate them from one another, instead of just moving on after each segment not knowing that I passed anything. I wish they had like skin packs for the game, where like in Minecraft, they can change the look of the background and all of the blocks to look different. I think that'd be really cool. But also just in the segments themselves, I want to be able to see a clear difference. And don't tell me they can't make a change of scenery in this game, because they totally can. They do it with the DLC. It's not a crazy big change, but it works to separate the DLC levels to the normal levels. Now the segments still don't separate from each other very well, but the fact that they changed the look at all is a very good thing. I really like the background to it all. It makes everything feel so much more tense, especially when the main game's background is pretty chill overall. This makes it feel like something bad is happening right now. It's great. So now it's time to talk about the DLC.
I'm just gonna say it now, this is one hell of a mixed bag.
They add a new mechanic to the game, which is really cool. It's a gravity shifting sort of thing, so you'll go from facing like this to facing the opposite side. It's funky and it's weird, and I love it. This idea could have led to such cool, new, and interesting level designs.
But they done did it again.
They don't use this mechanic in most of the levels in the DLC, which I let pass in the main game because the levels were still cool and had many ideas of their own. I'm not letting it pass here because these levels, while still having a lot of really fun and clever ideas, have a lot of boring and uninteresting levels at the same time. Levels with these mechanics could have definitely replaced some, if not all of those. And I'm also not letting it pass because I'm very tired of seeing these mechanics not being used very well at all. Like, yeah, there are interesting levels, but I want to see levels that incorporate all of the mechanics to make, like, a super level. There could be a lot of very cool levels that use these mechanics. And yet, we're stuck not knowing what they would look like because the mechanics aren't used enough. Other than that, though, the levels are pretty fun, and one key level has better concepts than the ones in the main game. The level in question is Grinder.
Not the dating app.
This level actually uses the wall slide in an incredible way that is never done at any other point in the game. Specifically when getting the crystals. You have to wall slide. You can beat this level without wall sliding, but to get the crystals, you have to wall slide, or else it just takes too much time to get through the level. That's really cool, and I wish there were more levels like that in the game. A lot of the other levels in the DLC are also really good, like Rule Jungle, Beginner Air Blender, and Residue Processing.
I didn't know we were in Half-Life now, but okay.
These levels are all really good and have good concepts behind them. Most of the levels in the DLC are like this. There are a few, however, that are absolutely horrible. Almost all the levels in this DLC aren't very difficult. They're much easier than the last segment of the main game. No level exceeds that difficulty threshold.
Which is fine, honestly, but don't give me boring levels that feel like they should be at the beginning of the game. That's bad.
And a few of the levels feel like that. They turn my brain off, and then when I beat the level, I move on to a much harder level. My brain turns on and off multiple times. It's not good. Could be worse, though. It could be Metropolis X, which is just a really poorly designed level. Like, the easy levels aren't exactly poorly designed, they're just kind of boring. Now, Metropolis X, on the other hand, makes me wonder where I'm going. I skipped the beginning cutscene thing that plays at the beginning of each level because you don't need it to beat the levels. The design of the stage just takes you down that route. With this level, I'd suggest watching the cutscene. The design of this level is so poor that I didn't even know the way they wanted me to go until I had played through it to get the crystals. I played it 3 times before that. It's really not a good level at all. So let's move on from the levels, shall we? I've talked enough about them.
Instead, let's go to the worst part of the DLC and the game in general, the final boss, Numero. This final boss is the most annoying, glitchy, sad piece of filth I have ever had to play through for a final boss.
Which sucks, because the idea for this boss is a really cool one. You have to climb this dude, shoot him in the eye, and kill him. I would have loved to do that. Nope. You don't get to climb up him and kill him. Instead, you have to go through 3 phases to kill him. Phase 1, you have to climb around him on these flying blocks to get to these points and shoot them, which makes him spasm or something, which is pretty cool, I will admit. Flying past these flying blocks is really cool and makes it feel a lot like a good final boss. The first phase is pretty good, pretty quick and fun, and it works well.
Phase 1 is good, Phase 2 is where everything crumbles.
Basically, you have to wait for him to hit the blocks 3 times, then his hand turns into this green blob thing, and then you have to shoot that and climb up his arm into his joint and shoot that. This is so confusing the first time you try this boss, it's not even funny. Okay, maybe a little. At first, I thought you had to wait for his arm to come crashing down and then climb it. So I tried that for like 10 minutes the first time, and then I realized that was not what was happening. And so I just kind of started waiting for something to happen because I had no clue what to do. And then he just bursts into green randomly and I realized that I should shoot it. No, I didn't. That was a lie. I was shooting at his henchman and then his hand just blew up out of nowhere. And then I realized that I had to climb it to kill him. Guess how many times you have to do this to get phase 2 over with?
4 whole times. 3 times to destroy his one arm, and 1 time to destroy his other one. For some reason.
Now this wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't the glitchiest thing in the game. Sometimes when I blow up his hand, this thing indicating that he's about to attack will show up. And then his broken hand will move over to it and try to punch down, leaving the part that I have to get to almost out of reach for me to get. You have to fling yourself so high up to reach this, it's almost impossible at times. Then to add on to the glitchiness, sometimes his arm will just break and come down and kill you instantly. Or he won't even attack and will instead just slide his hand around trying to kill you, which can definitely happen when he does so. I think that some of these happen if you slow-mo everything as his hand comes down. I'm guessing the timer for the hand coming down doesn't stop when you slow-mo, such as the actual timer. So his hitbox slows down, but the timer for him to punch doesn't, making him have to slide his hand across to try and kill you. I still don't know why his hand can just come crashing down before I have time to say P though. Overall, it's just better to go under the blocks so that you can avoid his BS punches, but then his henchmen will be 10 times harder to kill.
Either way, you're screwed, basically.
Phase 2 is absolutely the worst thing in this game. It takes forever, and it's way too glitchy for its own good. Now, is Phase 3 nearly as bad as this monstrosity? No, Phase 3 is honestly pretty good. The only part about this boss that is bad is Phase 2 because of the glitches. In Phase 3, you have to shoot the eye and kill him, basically. He shoots lasers that you have to avoid and sends out his henchmen for you to kill. If you spam the shoot button though, the boss goes down very quickly, and that's about all. This boss is only really bad in Phase 2 specifically. It had such a good concept that just got royally biffed because of how glitchy it was. Phase 1 and Phase 3 aren't nearly as bad. Phase 3 is really good. I love having to avoid all these things. I was just kind of exhausted after playing through all of Phase 2. That's the main thing. Overall though, the DLC is pretty good. At least I found my worth out of it. A lot of others didn't though, reading the Steam reviews. As for the entire game in general,
I absolutely love it if that was not evident already. This game is great.
It's speedy, difficult, and incredibly fun. I could see certain people not taking a liking to it because of those reasons that I love it. A lot of people don't like difficult games and some don't like speedy games, but if you like those games, I would strongly suggest it. This game is incredibly fun. I haven't seen many people talk about this game, but it is a really good game. Please go check it out because it could be on sale at any point. You never know. I do think the price may be a little high, especially since you can beat the entire game in an hour, but hey, if you don't like it, Steam's got a good return policy. But I feel like this game is worth the money considering I spent over 13 hours on it. So just have fun with it if you want.